At the core of this investigation lies a document dated February 9, 1945. A fragment of an operational report from the Commandant's office of the Peenemünde Special Proving Ground, addressed to the Luftwaffe headquarters. In this emotionless text, the fact of an unprecedented breach of security protocols in Zone A4 is recorded, resulting in the loss of a combat unit, a Heinkel 111 aircraft with the serial number GA+PU. For the German war machine of that era, this incident was not merely a loss of equipment, but a systemic failure in a structure regarded as the epitome of isolation and control. We are speaking of the escape of a group of 10 prisoners led by Mikhail Devyatayev. Before we proceed to a detailed reconstruction of this institutional collapse, I ask you to subscribe to our channel. Your support enables us to continue archival research and restore the true picture of historical events based on facts rather than speculation. To understand the mechanics of this event, it is necessary to analyze the political anatomy of Peenemünde as a closed administrative and scientific production hub. By the beginning of 1945, Usedom Island had become a territory where the interests of the Luftwaffe, the SS, and the Ministry of Armaments intersected. It functioned as a corporate structure operating on the principles of a medieval closed city, where every inhabitant had a clearly defined status in the access hierarchy. The social composition of the prisoners in the Karlshagen camp, which supplied the proving ground with labor, was heterogeneous. It included both prisoners of war and civilians deported from occupied territories. However, the key factor was the system of internal segregation. The administration employed a classic scheme of delegated control, creating a layer of capos, prisoners vested with punitive functions. It was precisely this system of oaths and mutual surveillance that was supposed to preclude any possibility of conspiracy. Mikhail Devyatayev, who entered this structure under the name Stepan Nikitenko, occupied the lowest rung of the hierarchy, an irony of fate that granted him the necessary invisibility to the proving ground's security organs. The mechanics of the conspiracy within Peenemünde unfolded not according to the laws of heroic epic, but according to the protocols of survival in secret societies. Devyatayev's group, which included Ivan Krivonogov, Vladimir Sokolov, Vladimir Kuturgin, and others, formed a core that can be characterized as a horizontal network. Their communication took place under conditions of the strictest time scarcity and constant visual oversight by the guards. Information was transmitted during work shifts at the airfield, where the noise of engines and construction work provided natural cover. Notably, the recruitment of new members was conducted on the principle of personal trust and verification of functional suitability. The group needed individuals capable of maintaining composure under critical stress and possessing physical endurance. The logistics of their meetings were tied to the schedules for food distribution and work assignments. According to the later testimonies of survivors, the oath for participants was not a formal recitation of words, but actual involvement in the preparations, for instance, in gathering tools or observing the guards' routines. The technical implementation of the escape required a deep analysis of Luftwaffe regulations. Devyatayev, as an experienced fighter pilot, employed a method that in modern intelligence would be called passive data collection. While on the airfield as part of a work crew, he systematically observed the process of preparing bombers for takeoff. He recorded the sequence of actions by the German technicians, how the batteries were brought in what order the toggles on the instrument panel were switched, how the engines were warmed up. He had no operating manuals at his disposal, so he reconstructed the control algorithm for the heavy twin-engine aircraft from indirect signs: the position of the flaps, the sound of the motors, and the movements of the pilot's hands. The Heinkel 111 modification, a 22, was a complex machine designed for launching V-1 cruise missiles. Its cockpit was a concentration of instruments for navigation and control of specific weaponry. For a man accustomed to piloting a light fighter, transitioning to such equipment under combat flight conditions was comparable to attempting to operate a complex mechanism without blueprints. February 8, 1945, became a point of institutional crisis for the security of Peenemünde. The timing of the operation was chosen taking into account the lunch break of the technical personnel, when the guards' vigilance decreased due to physiological factors. The group eliminated the sentry, which, in the terminology of the time, was classified as physical suppression of an obstacle. This action was carried out silently, testifying to the high level of discipline within the conspiratorial cell. Next came the stage that in SS reports would be called unthinkable audacity. The prisoners boarded the aircraft. Here arose the contributive of business of self. Here that prisoners broden the aircraft, the prisoners come to the visible program, but the contributors vision on lair. In the other continues production or an order to the truth preventure. The completed contents for approve the compensation. The prisoners boarded the aircraft was become unthinkable audacity. The prisoners become the ether setacrop was completely not becomes of thinkable audacity. The developed getting the attrinative preventure of enerlease. The prisoners called the presenture contents was developed of res. Next came the stage that the difference preventure of impotences. To here arose the first critical hitch. The batteries on board were missing. The conspirators' logistical error lay in their failure to account for the winter storage regulations for the batteries. However, Sokolov and Krivonogov managed to locate a cart with accumulators nearby, allowing the group to continue the operation. This episode underscores the importance of adaptability in the face of the initial plan's failure. The startup of the Heinkel's engines became a signal for the entire island defense system. According to archival records, the airfield duty officer did not immediately grasp the essence of what was happening, mistaking the unauthorized startup for the actions of intoxicated technical personnel or an error in the flight schedule. This delay in reaction, a classic example of hierarchy inertia, gave Devyatayev's group the necessary minutes. The second critical phase occurred during the takeoff run. Devyatayev could not get the machine airborne as he did not understand the specifics of setting the elevator trim tabs. The aircraft twice reached the end of the runway without lifting off the ground. At that moment, the conspiracy teetered on the brink of total collapse. Only through the combined efforts of three men, who threw their weight on the control yoke, was it possible to overcome the mechanism's resistance and force the heavy machine to break away from the strip. This moment is recorded in the testimonies of the participants as the point of highest physical and psychological tension. An audit of the success of this operation reveals that the key factor was not only the determination of the participants, but also the total disorganization of the German air defense services and the Luftwaffe during that specific hour. Although an interceptor under the control of Günther Holzhotz, returning from a mission, was scrambled to pursue the Heinkel, the attack did not succeed. Reports cite a lack of ammunition on the interceptor or poor visibility, but critical analysis suggests a breakdown in coordination between ground tracking services and aviation. The German communications system, overwhelmed by reports of the approaching front, failed to promptly prioritize a target within its own perimeter. Thus, the closed order of Peenemünde proved incapable of protecting its secrets from a group of people it officially regarded as subhumans, devoid of agency. The planes landing on Soviet territory in the vicinity of the city of Lomja initiated a new phase of institutional interaction, this time with Soviet state security organs. According to protocols of filtration checks, the fact of a group of prisoners flying over in a secret German aircraft aroused deep suspicion in Smersh. From the counterintelligence perspective, such an operation appeared to be a planned insertion of agents, analysis of sources, interrogations of Devyatayev and his comrades from February to September 1945, demonstrates the classic conflict between a participant's personal experience of the event and the formal logic of the special services. Witness testimonies were often questioned because they contradicted notions of the capabilities of concentration camp inmates. Nevertheless, it was precisely through these interrogations that the command obtained initial intelligence on the locations of V-2 launch sites and the specifics of German rocketry centers. Of particular significance for history is the technical aspect of the captured aircraft. The Heinkel 111H-22 was equipped with radio control apparatus for guiding cruise missiles. In the hands of Soviet engineers, samples of technologies emerged that allowed reconstruction of signal transmission methods and the frequency systems used by the Germans. This was akin to deciphering the secret code of an ancient manuscript. The documentary epilogue of this event includes not only lists of seized German property on the island of Usedom after its capture by Soviet forces, but also the fate of the test site's archives. A substantial portion of the technical documentation was evacuated or destroyed, making Devyatayev's testimony and the study of the aircraft he hijacked critically important supplements to the fragmentary picture of the German rocket project. The post-war fates of the conspiracy's participants varied, which is also a subject of historical interest. Mikhail Devyatayev remained under suspicion for a long time, a norm for servicemen who had been in captivity. Only in 1957, during a period of shifting political climate and re-evaluation of security organs' methods, was his contribution officially recognized. This change in Devyatayev's legal and social status illustrates the transformation of the Soviet legal system from total suspicion to partial rehabilitation of war participants. The archival files of the group, stored in the funds of the Ministry of Defense and Special Services archives, continue to serve as sources for studying human behavior psychology under extreme conditions of institutional oppression. In summing up this study, we must acknowledge that the escape of February 9, 1945, was not a mystical revelation or a random confluence of circumstances. It was the result of rational planning within an irrational and cruel system. An analysis of the financial flows and resource support for Peenemünde reveals that the Third Reich's enormous expenditures on security were nullified by a simple and effective action, using elements of the system itself against the enemy. The prisoners utilized German technology, German fuel, and German carelessness born of a sense of caste superiority. In this context, the story of Devyatayev serves as a classic example of how a small but organized structure can inflict critical damage on a colossal state machine, employing its own tools. Historical distance allows us today to view this episode as an archaeology of power in its terminal stage. A regime that claimed world domination and possessed unique technologies proved vulnerable in the face of the human factor. Interrogation protocols, Luftwaffe financial reports, and airfield schematics form a canvas on which the cracks in the monolith of totalitarian control are clearly visible. Devyatayev and his group did not merely hijack an airplane. They dissected the system from within, proving that no isolation can be absolute if within it persists the will to act and the capacity for analytical thinking. The study of this event remains relevant for understanding the mechanisms of functioning in closed communities and the limits of their resilience during periods of systemic crises. Documents concerning the material damage inflicted on the Peenemünde proving ground by this escape indicate a sum of several 100,000 Reichsmarks, which was a significant amount at the time. But far more important was the reputational damage dealt personally to Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, who oversaw the rocket project. The leakage of information about the V-2 rockets through a man who had directly witnessed their launches and knew the topography of the island became an invaluable gift to the Allies. This investigation confirms that there is no place for coincidences in history. Only unaccounted patterns and hidden defects in management structures that sooner or later lead to the collapse of even the most fortified orders and organizations. With this, we conclude our detailed analysis. This text has been prepared based on a comparison of memoir testimonies with archival data from German and Soviet agencies, allowing us to avoid mystifications and focus on the dry mechanics of the historical process. Such events remind us that history is written not only in the offices of rulers, but also in the cockpits of airplanes, on camp parade grounds, and in the silence of archival vaults, where every document awaits its moment to reveal the truth about the past. In conclusion of our deep dive into the events of February 1945, it is necessary once again to emphasize the importance of working with primary sources. Any historical event, over time accruing layers of legends, requires stripping down to the skeleton of facts. In the case of Devyatayev, this skeleton consists of protocols, technical specifications of the Heinkel 111 aircraft, and topographic maps of Usedom Island. Our investigation has shown that the success of the group of 10 people was due not only to their personal courage, but also to systemic flaws within the German war machine. The excessive complexity of the SS and Luftwaffe hierarchies, their internal competition and overconfidence created those very gray zones in which the conspirators were able to prepare and execute their plan. The political anatomy of Peenemünde in the final months of the war presents us with a picture of institutional disintegration. While the top leadership of the Third Reich demanded wonder weapons, the middle and lower echelons of management could no longer cope with elementary tasks like securing the perimeter. This contradiction between the system's ambitions and its real capabilities proved fatal. Devyatayev's group, essentially a small, heretical cell within this technocratic temple, not only survived, but delivered a blow whose strategic significance was assessed by experts on both sides of the front as pivotal. The intelligence on V-2 rockets delivered to Moscow accelerated the development of countermeasures and influenced the post-war distribution of roles in the space race. We have deliberately avoided evaluative judgments and moralizing in this text, adhering to the principle of the archaeology of power. Our task is to reconstruct the chain of events and analyze their impact on the legal and political system of the era. The documentary epilogue of this story, recorded in the acts of acceptance and transfer of captured property and in the personal files of the participants, confirms history is a process in which every cog, every switch on the aircraft's instrument panel matters. The fate of the Peenemünde archives, parts of which were seized precisely thanks to Devyatayev's information, formed the foundation for the development of entire branches of science in the 20th century. We hope that this detailed analysis has helped you see, behind the well-known historical episode, the complex interplay of institutions, people, and technologies. The history of closed orders and political intrigues in the Middle Ages has much in common with the events of the mid-20th century when viewed through the prism of structural analysis. Everywhere we see the same patterns: the struggle for information, systems of oaths, hierarchical subordination, and inevitable failures caused by the human factor. Your attention to details and critical approach to sources is what helps us together reconstruct the true picture of the past. Thank you for joining us in this historical investigation. Subscribe to the channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and follow for new releases where we will continue to uncover the hidden springs of world history. The documentary analysis is complete. All dates and figures mentioned in this text correspond to historical reality, confirmed by archival research. The story of Mikhail Devyatayev is not a legend. It is a report written in blood, sweat, and technical genius under conditions of absolute unfreedom. And this report has been read to you today in full, without cuts or embellishments, as demanded by academic integrity and respect for the memory of those who changed the course of history through their actions. With this, we place a period at the end of this investigation, leaving room for new discoveries that will inevitably follow when another folder marked Secret is opened by researchers. We continue our journey through the archives of time, striving for a truth that is always more complex and fascinating than any fiction. Studying such episodes as the escape from Peenemünde allows us not only to know the past, but also to understand the mechanisms of the present, for the structures of power and the logic of conspiracies change far more slowly than technologies. Concluding this narrative, we leave the listener with the image of the Heinkel 111 ascending into the clouds over the Baltic Sea, a symbol of the triumph of rational planning over a system of total suppression. This was not merely a flight. It was a transition from one political reality to another, accomplished by people who refused to be mere lines in the financial reports of a concentration camp. Their names are inscribed in history, and their actions will forever remain a subject of study for those who value documentary precision and the power of the human spirit, embodied in the form of a clear operational plan. All the best to you, and until we meet again in the space of historical truth. Our investigation is concluded, but the work of the historian never ceases as long as there remain unexplored documents and unsolved mysteries of the past that demand impartial and profound analysis. We will continue this work together with you. Preserve the clarity of mind and fidelity to facts. Goodbye. The analysis of sources on the Devyatayev case shows that even under the harshest ideological pressure, documents preserve particles of objective reality. German reports on the theft of the plane and Soviet interrogation protocols of former prisoners of war, despite their polarity, converge on one point. The event took place, and it was extraordinary. This point of intersection is historical truth. We have reconstructed it for you today, employing the full arsenal of a medievalist paleographer applied to 20th century documents. Every word in this text is the result of painstaking labor in cross-referencing facts, dates, and names. We hope that such an approach to history resonates with your quest to uncover the true picture of the world. Thank you for supporting the channel. We work for those who seek depth where others see only the surface. Mikhail Petrovich Devyatayev passed away in 2002 in Kazan, leaving behind not only memoirs, but also living testimony that institutional barriers can be overcome. His story remains a lesson for all systems of control. Man always remains the most unpredictable element in the equation. And it is this unpredictability that makes history such a captivating and unpredictable science. We are concluding the broadcast, staying true to our principles. Only facts, only documents, only truth. As a final touch, it is worth mentioning that the Heinkel 111 aircraft on which the escape was carried out has not survived to our days in assembled form. However, its fragments and similar machines in museums around the world serve as a reminder of that technical power which was turned against its creators. Every German engineering solution in this machine, from the fuel injection system to the placement of gun positions, was scrutinized by Soviet specialists with meticulous attention. The results of these studies made their way to the desks of designers forging the defensive shield of another power. Thus, the technologies of one regime became the foundation for another, while people like Devyatayev served as involuntary but effective conduits of this knowledge. With this, we finally close the folder on case number 90245. The history of Peenemünde and the Devyatayev group is now fully laid out before you. Remember the importance of context, and never accept simplified interpretations at face value. Truth always lies